The idea for this class is very much to invite the members to give us a game, to look and analyze for yourselves. So first of all, yes, you have it. And you were white or black?
White.
Okay, Gabriel, and you played, wow, very strong player, Petros Karagiannis. It's a very nice Greek name. I'll mispronounce it. In the Super Team Championship, played last year. You were white, and you opened B4, aka the orangutan variation. B4, C6, bishop B2. Now, I'm not a big experienced player on the black side of the orangutan. I played it a little bit with white, mostly in blitz. I don't think I ever played it in tournament play, but this move strikes me as premature. That is to say, really?
Surprised with his strength on doing that.
Yeah, bringing out the queen so early in the opening like that. Okay, well, obviously, his intention is to capture the pawn. All right, so you defended the pawn, makes sense to me. A3, and then he played the move A5. Okay, so this is, so now you have a question that you need to ask yourself. How are you going to defend the pawn on B4? You went E3. You went E3, ignoring his threat for the moment. He took the pawn on B4, and you shot out with your bishop to D4, and black fell for a trick, I think. Yeah. Okay. So what white is thinking is that if he had recaptured right away, then after a trade on A1, black wanted to win the pawn on B4. So if the queen moves to A5, as we've seen, and trades itself on A1, we think queen C1 to B2 will chase the rook away, and that will be inadequate. Black has missed a trick. Black played the move C5. Well, of course. I mean, he took the pawn on B4 to win the pawn, and the only way to keep the pawn is to play C5. But now white said, thank you very much. I will take the pawn on C5. Bishop takes C5. And now queen went across to F6, attacking the rook on A1. Gosh, this is a weird situation. Now, you played bishop D4 and E5, and it got weird. I mean, it's weird from the start, right? I mean, so thank you for the game. I mean, that's just like... But maybe there was something also to be said for D4 here. Just because... Pardon me? Sorry, say that again, Gabriel? I missed it.
I'm sorry. I was mentioning, yeah, that's better. I mean, I feel bad, but I think that's better.
Right. So I'm thinking that D4 to block the threat. Now, if black, for argument's sake, plays a move like D6 or B6, you're just wanting to play bishop takes B4, and then you're pawn ahead. And if black plays a move like knight C6, then after knight D2, well, again, you're threatening to take this pawn on B4, and I don't know, in case of trades, it seems to me that after all of these trades, white's got the edge. I mean, his pawn structure looks a little bit nicer than this isolated pawn over here. And the bishop's actually doing pretty good. You're going to go knight F3, and if he plays E6, you can mess up his opportunity to castle. So I think I would have gone for D4 at this point. you played a reasonable move. You played bishop d4 and new variation e5, and oh, I don't like this move. You played bishop b2, and that looks like a lost tempo to me. From my point of view, if I were white, I would want to take on b4 and resolve this tension like ASAP. So in the game, you have retreated your bishop to b2 when maybe, or put another way, I certainly would have taken on b4 right away. So this would have probably provoked black to trade the rooks. And now since black is a pawn down, he'd probably take. And you know, you can decide for yourself whether you think white is good or better or what have you. I like white's position here. I think like white is doing pretty good. In the first place, there's a square d5. So the moves knight c3 to d5 start to be attractive. In the second place, thanks to the queen being a little bit misplaced on f6, putting pressure on this pawn on e5 starts to be attractive. Maybe f4 right away. It's a little bit risky because your king, but he can't take the rook. Yeah, there you go. But in this case, the bishop on a1 looks very nice, right? It's on the long diagonal. Yeah. Okay. You guys having a good time, huh? So here, I didn't like the move you have played. You have played bishop b2. Let's see. Oops, sorry. Bishop b2. Okay, this is the new main line. Okay, so bishop b2, knight c6, knight f3. So far, everything's still okay. d5, bishop b5, very nice, pinning like this. Bishop g4. And let me just pause. Let me just pause here for a second. Okay. All right. I like your move h3. I was just wondering about something else. Takes. Nothing. Okay. No. Okay. H3. So you're breaking the pin. Bishop f3, queen f3, queen f3, g f3. I still give you an edge. f6. Okay. Now you made a move rook g1. Okay. That's
How about a4 here?
a3, a4 now for white?
Yes, that's a good move.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So first, quick question for the class, just to kind of get a feel for who likes white's position, who likes black's position, who thinks it's even. So most of the players like white's position, and I do too. I like white's position for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I like the two bishops. That's simple. I like white's bishop on b5. I think it's a very good piece. Second thing is, at the moment, I don't think that this pawn on b7 is a weakness, but it could easily become a weakness for black. The other thing I actually like is I do like, even though these pawns are doubled, I actually like white's pawn structure, because I think that if white steps up with his king into the center, king e2, it's going to be real safe. kind of like in a pocket, a zone of protection. Yeah. Gabriel, you've gone for rook g1, and here's why I'm not really a big fan of that move. First of all, when, you know, in my kind of thinking is I'm going to kind of laser-like lock in on a weakness that my opponent has. Okay, so if my opponent has a weakness. So in this position, I'm looking at the structure, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I take this pawn, he'll trade rooks, takes, and then because I've initiated this capture, he's going to recapture bishop takes b4. So I can actually wait. I would rather allow black to capture me and then develop me. So I want to make a useful waiting move. You came up with the move rook g1, and the way I look at that move is that you're not really attacking the key weakness. To my mind, this pawn on a4 would be the weakness. So what I might do is I might play the move king e2, right? So let's just say, for argument's sake, king f7. Then let's go let me just put it on the board. Sorry. Let me go king e2. Okay. Now let's just say, for argument's sake, king f7. Black makes a useful move. He gets his king out of the pin. Trade, trade, yay, trade, yay. Knight comes out. Knight defends. Rook b1. And knight d5 is also possible. So maybe knight takes d5 at Julian with the tactical flair. And now you got to decide. Well, again, the whole point of my king e2 useful move is I'm dreaming of the opportunity to play rook b1 and go after this weak pawn. And whether I do it with knight d5 or rook b1 right away, I was thinking that my king needed to make room for the rook. So we go back for a moment because obviously we messed it up for black. So let's say king e2. Let's give black another move instead. What's a good move? I don't know. Let's say knight h6. New variation. Let's take. Rook trades. Bishop trades. Bishop takes on b4. Knight comes to c3. And in my mind's eye, I'm thinking that if I can bring my rook to b1, that I'm going to start to target the pawn on b2. Of course, his pawn on d5 is hanging, and black may be obliged to give up yet his other bishop and go into defense mode. The problem that I have with your move rook g1 is, this is actually a very logical move from the perspective that you have the half-open g file, put a rook on the half-open g file, pressure g7. The problem with this move is that if black adequately defends the pawn on g7, in other words, if the pawn on g7 turns out not to be a weakness, then maybe the move rook g1 is misplaced. All right, you have played, after king f7, you made the decision to trade. Pardon me, king f7. Good. And now we're back to our situation. I think I would have played king e2 at this point. I think that the king is just simply much better on e2 than on the e1 square. So I would have to say that this move a takes b4 helps black. It's more helpful to black than to white. Did you consider the move king e2, by the way?
Oh, no.
No. Yeah. I mean, who voluntarily moves their king? Well, I do. I mean, okay, 5 hands got raised on that one. Silly question. Okay, but you do recognize that the king is in a kind of a comfort zone here, right? I mean, everything's really nice. The other thing is it's not so easy. If black puts his knight on e7, he's kind of interfering with his bishop's control. If black moves his bishop, then you've got the same position, only a tempo more, and your king would probably be happy on e2. Another just funny, besides the move AB4 and King E2, was there another move that you would consider? I can see one other move that I would have been attracted to. Here's the move that I would have been attracted to. I would have probably rejected it in favor of King E2. But the other move that I'm attracted to is, again, you know, I'm always looking at the trumps in my hand, and I'm trying to say to myself, okay, what's good about my position? Well, that's not exactly my ace in the hole. I kind of like the 3 of clubs, okay. But the ace I do have is this bishop on b5. And it would be really cool if I could play the move bishop c4, because it would be a check and it would mess up my opponent. So the move e4 I might find attractive, but I would reject e4 because I don't want to meet knight d4. But another move I would find very attractive here for white is c4. Okay? So I think once you see the move c4 and it's played in front of you, you kind of start to say, yeah, that move has a logic, right? First of all, if it's my turn, I take a pawn, life is good. Second of all, if you take my pawn, I've got a check, and my ace, my light squared bishop, is looking pretty good, and that check. If you take en passant, okay, I mean, I can live with that too. Knight takes c3 develops with the tempo against the pawn on d5, and then there are ideas like Julian just showed, that in case of knight d5, knight d5, knight d5, bishop c4. So the move c4 also has a logic. So I like king e2 best, rook g1, not so happy, king f7, takes. Okay, let's see what happened after takes. A takes b4. Okay, just a second. A takes b4. Where am I? Oh, hate that. Rook takes a1. Bishop takes a1. Knight takes b4. Ooh, and you have an issue. The issue you have is, what are you going to do about the pawn on c2? You did nothing. You played knight c3, which is... when did your hatred of pawns first manifest? Were you young? I mean... yeah. Treating them badly. I really value...
I think that was my idea. I realized if he caught it, I wanted to develop the knight.
Okay.
Of d5, because I would just move my king to recapture, or to move away and let the rook recapture, and then my rook gets back into the game.
Okay.
On the far side. I think that's what my thought process was.
Sure.
So should he take it, I want to develop the knight first, and then I'll just move the king up, and then I'll capture the bishop, then I'll recapture with the rook, and then to bring it down to the 7th rank.
Understood. I would have probably developed my knight to a3. Okay, so I would have probably played my knight to a3 and my king to e2, and then, you know, because I love my kids, played c4. Yeah, or like knight a3, king e2, rook b1, c3, drive the knight back. I like. You played knight c3, and I think that this is simply too enterprising. And remarkably enough, he did not capture the pawn. I find that amazing. He played the move d4. So, okay, d4. Whoa. Now things got weird. You played a strange order of moves. You played knight d5, knight takes d5, bishop c4, when I think everybody would have played bishop c4 check, right? I mean, you were just explaining a moment ago that you had hoped for / anticipated that after knight takes c2 check, king e2, knight takes a1, rook takes a1, in your mind's eye, and I think that's correct, you saw that not only was the d5 pawn hanging, but your rook could come down and recapture the pawn, and in the meantime, you know, he's got three unhappy pieces on the king side that he has to deal with. So you had anticipated this variation, and when your opponent played d4, you mixed something up here, because you have played, again, in the game you've played knight d5, and after knight takes d5, bishop here, knight here. In order to win your knight back, you had to play the move e4, and then this guy's a little bit unhappy, right? And also, now your pawn structure, especially your double pawn, start to look a little bit bad. Okay, but had you played properly, had you played bishop, you know, one of the things that I really had a problem with was when I was starting is if there was a check in the position, I was going for it, right? And so you had to kind of stop yourself from making a check every opportunity you get and just ask yourself, well, who would benefit more from the check? But in this particular case, white stands to benefit a lot more because there's only two squares to go. You would love your opponent to go like blindly into e7, which steps in front of the bishop and steals a square for a knight. So the king would have to go back. And if you start thinking in terms of like, why did you put your rook on g1? Well, you put your rook on g1 to target this pawn on g7, so you're driving away a defender. So from all perspectives, the check is great, right? I mean, yeah.
94, your threat is bishop takes g8 and then knight takes f6.
And even now, right, Julian, with the tactical eye, has pointed out that in case of knight e4, knight takes c2, king e2. After knight takes a1, you could recapture what you, Gabriel, had in mind of activating your rook. But what Julian pointing out is that white also has another option of bishop takes, so that in case of rook takes, to take on f6. Now that's a judgment call whether or not you want to win two pieces for a rook. Here I'd be a little bit concerned that yeah, b pawn is the b pawn might go into overdrive, and I'd be a little bit worried about that. But in any case, bishop c4 check. You know,
I think that was my other idea about off the knight, because I recognize that I mean, I didn't expect this being to push the pawn, but I think the other idea is because I didn't want the knight to still capture on c2. So I figured this forces the knight to move back, and I'm just going to, but yeah, I realized now I compromised my
your pawn structure. But bishop c4 check, boy, that sure looks like an attractive move to me. I mean, I would have most certainly tried it. And also, just to finish that one line, because I didn't go down the pathway that I'd hoped to, which was bishop c4 check, king e8. I like this move, knight d5, new variation, because even though you have lost your pawn on c2, naughty, naughty, even though you have lost your pawn on c2, if your rook gets really active while everybody's still at home back here, you know, oops, sorry, that was a mouse slip, just a second, okay, overwrite. That rook, I think you're actually doing really well here, and I wouldn't surprise me at all if you weren't winning, in fact, simply because too many weak guys on the first rank there.
Black has it a bit on his king's side.
Yeah, I mean, I would say good compensation for your pawn. Okay, you have played knight d5, takes, bishop c4, and now you've played e4, and now everything's wrong for you, I'm afraid. First of all, a very good move by him. Bravo, bravo. b5, he gets in a very nasty little tempo. You didn't have any great desires to take bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5 when your whole pawn structure is messed up. You drop back with your bishop, and then essentially black got to play the move b7, b5 with a tempo. He got to play it for free. And instead of being a weakness on b7, it could turn out to be a tower of strength on b4. You've played bishop b3, bishop b3. He has played king e6, and here I don't like your choice. You have played bishop b2. I don't like that move at all, bishop b2. Essentially, I think what you have in mind, Gabriel, if I can guess, is you had maybe the idea of bishop b2, bishop a3, bishop takes in mind. And here I think you need to be fighting for more of an equality type of thing. Your pawn structure sucks. Okay, so you got to remedy your pawn structure. And if I were in your shoes, I would have played f4 here. Okay, so from my point of view, I'm thinking that if black takes this pawn, then my bishop emerges like a phoenix, and it's just great on d4. So black is not going to take that pawn, but black has to come up with a move himself. Maybe he should get his king out of the pin, right? Maybe something like king d6, takes, check, takes. Now you're obliged to take. And again, I want to do something that could blast open the bishop on a1. It's just not living a very good life. So I have to play something with f4, and maybe I have to simply take here and play f4. So with this idea of f4 in mind, what I really want to do is play rook g5. So if you take, I could go rook g5 check and end up taking on d4. So here I think you're struggling for equality, and very important lesson in chess is that when you have weaknesses, if you can trade off your weaknesses with a move like f4, I would jump on f4. You have played instead bishop b2. He played king d6. You've king d6, and now you have a problem. Your intention of bishop a3 check and takes the knight is simply going to be met by b5, b4, and it's an oopsie daisy. Okay, so here I think you're obliged to take, and now your position has a lot of defects. Okay. Even as much as I'm not a happy camper about your position, I don't like the choice you made here. In this case, again, looking at your trumps, you don't have too many of them, but one you definitely have is this bishop on d5. And I'm thinking that if you give bishop on b3, if you give up for that knight on d5, it's really, really bad news. So here I'm looking at your structure. I don't like anything that I see. But at least your rook on g1 is kind of keeping his bishop honest a little bit. I would have probably have played the move h4 here with the idea that my pawn is... I'm afraid that after he plays a move like knight f4, I'm going to be in positional disaster. So I'm thinking that in case the knight comes to f4, my pawn would be better on h4. And I'm hoping that if after, for example, h4, g6, h5, I could actually try to turn something that's a negative into a positive. It's not easy. Another one that you should consider here too is the idea that you could potentially get bishops of opposite colors, and that could be very useful for you. So let me give you another thought. Let's say check. Now it's clear if black moves his king, then you're happy to trade and take. So we're going to oblige black to advance his pawn to b4. Our bishop has absolutely no business being on b2 because it's biting on granite. So we're going to bring the bishop to c1. Okay? Now, why I just pointed out this for a moment is, let's imagine black plays the move knight f4, attacking our pawn. We defend it. Black plays a move like g6 to escape the rook being on g1. Here, it may not be your beloved position, but here I would say that your chances of drawing with bishops of opposite color isn't bad. It might be losing, but at least bishops of opposite color gives you a potential avenue for escape. When you've played the move bishop takes d5, your position has no redeemable features. Yes, Julian. With check, you mean? Oh, of course, and very happily, probably he should as well. After knight d5, bishop here, knight c3. Oops. Now, first of all, once more, I wouldn't be so eager to jump into the bishops of opposite color. I would much, much rather be trying to solve a weakness. So I would play f4 with the idea to take on e5, to take on c3, and get my bishops of opposite color positions anyway. Okay? Bishop Edgar 7? Yeah, Bishop Edgar 7, sure. Okay, let me get this guy in, because why else did I play h4 if not to get rid of that guy? Now, Rook a8. Well, that sure puts the kibosh on my idea of I'm forced to capture. Capture with the b pawn? Yeah, sure, why not, right? King e2. And I'm just hoping, I'm putting blind faith in my bishops of opposite color position and just hoping that I can hold. It might be very difficult. I have to be aware that in some positions you may want to sacrifice. You're channeling Petrosian. Petrosian would always want to sacrifice his exchanges. But here there's some chances for you to save. Let's go back. And instead you have played, bishop takes d5. And after this, I think it's hopeless. Bishop takes d5, king takes d5. New main variation. King e2, g6, very logical move. Rook a1, bishop d6, excellent. Rook a5, rook b8, and now you are well and truly a pawn down. King d3. Actually, he should have played bishop c5 right away, no? Because he's played it in this position. Bishop a3. He makes an interesting decision by going into a straight rook ending. Probably it's a good decision. I'm always a little bit leery of straight rook endings because the defending side usually has so many chances in a straight rook ending. I would have probably kept the bishop by playing b4. Bishop comes back and f5 e4. Your opponent has traded the bishops, and probably he's winning anyway, but I would have probably kept the pieces, the bishops. F5, rook A5. Here, if there's any chances for you in defending the position, I think it has to lie with getting your rook as active as possible. I mean, it's clear he's going to get the pawn to E4, but if you could get your rook down and maybe harass him from behind, you'll increase your chances of saving the position. When you have played rook A5, E4 king with check, F takes, F takes. Very good move, Gabriel. King E2. Like, well played. You saw that one. Okay. Rook B6. Okay, now you wised up here. Bravo. Rook A7. You got your. So you've lost a tempo or two. Okay. Now here, one of the things I might want to do is I might want to harass this pawn with rook here. But the problem with rook H7 immediately is that after G5, the rook defends everything. The rook is great. I consider this pawn isolated and weak, so I might have played H4 here in anticipation of rook H, and if he plays G5, I get rid of one weakness. You have played check, I believe. H6, rook D7, check, rook D6. Good move by him. Ooh, you traded rooks.
This is the one I want back. And the nice thing is, because we're getting down to time. He had like a minute, I had about 5. And I realized it's like, oh, I should have kept the rook active, and I just simplified it, made it easier to pawn.
Precisely.
I'm so mad.
Yeah, you're still seething over your decision. That was a very, very bad decision to trade rooks. It's highly unlikely that in any king and pawn endgame where there's so many pawns on the board and you're pawn down that you're able to draw, okay? With the rooks, your chances are so 99% better. So trading the rooks, I appreciate that, yeah, maybe time was a factor, but it's just you can't do it, right? And had you played rook b7, by the way, which I think most players would have, going after this pawn, if he defends the pawn and you play check, and if he, you're doing your best to harass him and, make it as difficult as possible for black to make progress. But this decision to trade rooks, no, that's the gong. Rook takes, new main line. King takes, not good. D3. So you had some hopes here. I'm not sure where they might be. F3. Oops. Protected pass pawn. F4. B4. Yay. F4, B4, King E6. It's interesting. Your score sheet's wrong, so you have B4 twice. You have, maybe it's H4. Did you play H4?
I think it's the H4,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
My handwriting, sorry.
Yeah. B4. Before. King E6. King F3. King F5, King G3. Ooh. The old breakthrough. E2. King. King. I like that. I would have made a bishop if I had thought of it. King G3, H5, G takes H5, and that's all she wrote. Yeah.
And I realized the key thing was like, I'm so mad. It's like I should have kept the rooks on the board.
Right.
And so,
Well, first of all, it was like you came out of the opening looking very pretty after bishop takes c5, because he fell for that. Very nice, very nice. We have my pleasure. So, Julian, Where's Julian?
Went into the hall.
Went into the hall. Okay, well, let's see what Julian did. He said black won. I mean, we're going to have to talk about his penmanship. I mean, geez, what is this? Well, first of all, it's funny. In the good old days of English descriptive, I would write pawn / king 4, pawn to king 4. Yeah. Yeah, the old English descriptive. Later, I realized that algebraic was just so much superior, and I would write pawn to e4, pawn e4. But then people told me, well, you don't have to use pawns. You don't put the pawns in. And I'm looking at Julian's notation, and he says pawn e4, pawn c5. Pawn e4, pawn c5. Okay. Then he says bishop c4, bc4, bishop c4, and then Natalie, bishop c4. Geez, I'm gonna really need him for my, because Jonathan, look at this. He goes knight something, then it goes queen f3, move 3, white plays queen f3. On move 5, white plays queen f3. Do you see move 3, queen f3?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like some kind of code. You know, you're
Run up and see.
yeah, well, yeah, because otherwise I have a hard time deciphering. So on move 3, I think the move was knight c6, and I think white played queen f3. And then instead of playing the very attractive and very good knight e5, e6 has been played.
Yeah.
And then we have, yes, yeah, knight h3. And then we have,
Pawn c5. Well, hold on. Okay. See point now.
well, hold on, you wait till you get to move 5, because whatever black's next move was, white's 5th move is queen f3.
It's something.
Julian.
What is this game? Who? What?
What? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think I played. This isn't my.
Hey Rex, how are you doing? Welcome. Welcome.
Julie, did you even mean to submit that? This isn't my game.
Somebody's playing a dirty trick on you. They're saying, look at Julie.
Why would I put P for pawn?
Funny you should mention that. This isn't your game. Okay. So somebody was having a good laugh at your expense.